Hello guys, hope you are doing good. This is TJ and you're listening to Beyond the Ring podcast. This is my review and discussion on new episode of WWE Icon on Rob Van Dam. This was a great episode, man. I enjoyed this episode. Even though it was long, I didn't felt like it was kind of boring in at any moment. This was a great episode. I would recommend you to watch this episode. So without any further ado, let's get into this. So before we begin with this review, I would be happy guys if you leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more wrestling content like this. I do reviews of shows, I do reviews of documentary and all that wrestling stuff. So be tuned into my channel. So the documentary actually began with Rob's childhood, where we get to know that Rob was born in December 1917 in Battle Creek, Michigan, and he was the youngest of three. And we got to see his sister as well, Terry Shatosowski, who says he was always fond of to be in the spotlight and to be that kid who's like a go-getter attitude. And he was a smart kid, and as well he was good in studies, and he was not into sports that much because he was not accustomed to that or organized to was not liking to be get to the sports following the rules, because he was always a child where he wanted to do what he likes. And his friends actually he actually got to wrestling when his friends actually would watch pro wrestling and they talk about it, and he just laugh out of it, and he finally agreed to watch, and he was hooked when he saw Corp Krishner get attacked by Iron Sheik, and this was his first live event where he saw wrestling, and he was immediately hooked onto it, and he wanted to be a wrestler then after. And he talks about attending a show, and there was something that was filmed with Ted DiBiase, and Ted DiBiase actually had an offer where to kiss his feet for $100, and he actually happened to be going to the ring onto the ring and kiss his foot. And he was kind of a child, he was kind of a person who was not good at negotiation, and he actually got $100 as well. And that's great, man, to kiss the food and you're getting $100. And he said that was the first pay he got. And it was confirmed in his mind that he wanted to become a pro wrestler, and he actually tried to join a wrestling school, high school wrestling team, just to get some training and all. And his coach actually told that he to lose some weight, as he wanted to be a big guy, because he was a lot of training and all. He was so he took upon weightlifting then because he wanted to be a big guy, and his coach wanted him to drop the and lose the weight. So he wanted to he pursued weightlifting then, and he and his friends actually were searching for some place where they can do wrestling training. But they finally found out a guy called Kit Lekins, who had the ring in his backyard, and he was actually a boxing champion, a kickboxing champion at World Boxing Council. And Kit actually said that you can come here, but you should be training for kickboxing as well, though you can do that. So there was no choice or option for them. They did train for kickboxing, and after that all the guys who are training for kickboxing are gone. They used to do training for wrestling training. They used to do that person. But Kit Lekins has also said that they were so good that they were so catching up with the skills and all the things that's required to be a kickboxer. They had that, and they were very good, and they were very brilliant in what they were doing. And he was and he after this segment we got that footage of first kickboxing match of Rob's career, and he actually crushed the opponents of more experience than him he was facing. And he was so good that Kit Lekins actually was thinking that he was worried about that he was going to wrestling, and he should have been going to kickboxing, because he may be a very good kickboxer than a wrestler that he thought. But he was proven wrong, because he actually made bigger than that, as Kit Lekins said. And next for Rob, after that, next we got Rob in his junior high school days. He used to work in a grocery store, and he actually had known about that there's a wrestling school which was 40 minutes away from his home. So it was very great opportunity for him that not far from his house, as he thought, as he was. So this was the place where we got Sabu and Rob Van Dam's relationship forward, because Sabu obviously was Sheik's nephew, and so Sabu was working there, and he tells us that RVD actually taught him how to do a backflip, where I actually taught him all the things that I know, and that was a pretty good exchange there. Actually, Sabu had laughed at that moment. So Rob says that Sheik's wrestling school was kind of very tough business, very tough wrestling school, because his wrestling school had a mindset of being real, because the things and the training that they were doing, the rules and all, the way they were imparting the training and all, that was very tough, because tough as well as they were not being told how to be safe, or how to do the things, how to bump and all perfectly. And Sheik's wrestling school was like that. And this actually this mentality actually had reflected upon various in various wrestling promotions, or very in this business image. Actually, that business image actually happened to be Sheik's wrestling school is very real, and they are not taught about how to do things straightly, and they are not safest workers who comes from there. And that was the mentality of those were in the business. And then we saw some early footage and matches of in Michigan area, in Ohio areas. With We also saw some clips of with matches of Chris Candido. And then Rob went to Tampa, where he was told by a promoter that he looked like John Claude Van Damme. He really looked like, and he actually thought that they actually thought that they wanted to be him playing his cousin, and wanted to do a Belgian accent as well, just like John Claude Van Damme. So he just touched light upon that, said he's not much interest about it, but he took in a fun way. And then he kind of put forth the experience that he had got in Jamaica, where weed were being passed around, and Rob didn't want to do it, that type of things. And once in a point, Jimmy Del Rey, called as a superstar, Jimmy Del Rey told him to take him, it's not gonna kill you, he says. And Rob didn't like it. Not wanted to do, and he was literally standing staring a wall. And that was fantastic, man, to just just be away from the bad things, because all of the wrestlers that we were seeing in this period, all of the documentaries, they are all influenced by this. So fantastic. But he eventually did get into that, yeah, because his friends were using it, other guys was using it, so he eventually used that, and it has its effect as well in his career as well. We will get about that. And then we got Rob touch upon tour of Japan he had made, and he used to make a bunch of money as well after in that place. And Dory Funk Jr. then comes into the picture, where he talks about meeting Rob in Japan, and he said that he was a tough athlete, and he actually he also then we also saw some footage of his matches from All Japan. Very surprising, man. He was in All Japan, and it was so great experience for him to go there and wrestle in a very top promotion like All Japan, because 90s All Japan is like now in NGPW. Even though I would not say NJPW is a very big promotion now, like now, but like that was a time where Japanese promotions, we had the All Japan was the king at that. They had some great matches, the Gaijin brothers and all. That was fantastic. So then we got that he was called upon for working for WCW, and he was known as there as Robbie V. And WCW was giving him a contract, and he didn't sign it because he didn't want to leave his home. Actually, didn't want to, was not willing to work at WCW, and because he wanted to leave TV to go for independence. And some guys were like, so you are being shown in TV and you are going to wrestle to independence, what so some guys would be like, so you are a you're as dumb as ever. But if you think about anything, it's not a dumb or something. If you're getting any happiness from anywhere, that's the greatest thing you can do for yourself. And I feel that. And then we saw a conference, a national wrestling conference, which was promoted by TC Martin. And And then he actually was working after that. Actually, after he leave WCW, was working in independent promotion called National Wrestling Council, I think so. So Sabu actually brought Rob into the NWC, and they were actually pretty impressed by his abilities. He was doing the maneuvers that fans had never seen in that time, and I would say that it's his own way of style that we are not seeing right now as well. Do you know guys, who are just like foolproof imitating Rob Van Dam or something? Yeah, there would be a frog splash or something, but his split-legged moonsault, his senton like splash, that's a trademark move of Rob Van Dam, and that's very impressive that he had. And there were many moves like that as well. So he was one of a kind. Then as he was in National Wrestling Council, and Dory actually said that he was very good in his character and all. And then we got to the main thing, which was at the age of 25 he was caught by the attention of a small promotion called ECW, which was in Philadelphia. So Paul Heyman actually tells us that Paul Heyman come into the picture in this interview, and he tells us that Sabu told him that Rob was ready to be a star and ready to join ECW. And Paul actually saw some of his early works in Japan, and he actually think that they needed to sign him immediately. And Rob actually talked to him. Rob talks about him, how in Georgia and you could how in Georgia you could get over by the fans just by chanting USA or something, but it's way opposite in ECW, because it's very hard to get over in the midst of ECW fans. And Devon Dudley as well, he also talk about that how it is hard to impress ECW fans, because they are just there, they are just waiting to nitpick or something, just to chant or something. They are very toughest, as these legends, I mean, say you can say that these wrestlers were saying, these experienced wrestlers were saying. And Tommy Dreamer then comes into the interview and talks about the things that Rob could do, and only other person that they saw could do similar things with Sabu, because he was one of the epitome of high flyer wrestling at that time, because he had his size, he had that promo work excellent, he had that character, and he was a kind of a wrestler who can do it all. And when we I'm not against anything, but I'm more like Rob Van Dam than Sabu was just I actually felt like Sabu was just a high flyer who was not a kind of style, that character that Rob Van Dam had, because Rob Van Dam had that charisma. I think he was not like and then Tommy Dreamer comes into the interview and in this docu-series, and he thinks that Rob is the only person that can do this kind of maneuvers and styles and these things. And but the only man who can top it off or who can come into close was Sabu, and they had a contrast. They had a very molding, very meshed up a style, and they think about their tag team matches and all. They would be so meshed up well. So they actually had some very fun matches, and they actually started with some matches, but that got into a long chain of history actually, because they had a ton of matches. They had a ton of good matches, and they were so good with each other. And then we saw where in the early 1997 ECW was preparing for their first pay-per-view, and we got some that segment as well, where Paul Heyman was announcing that they're going with the first pay-per-view called Barely Legal. And we see actually Paul then have some matches and all. He said actually spoke about that. And then Rob was kind of not excited because he was not on the card, and Rob was kind of bummed up because he think that he is, and he think like that he was one of the centerpiece of ECW, but hey, they didn't include it. But Paul says that I actually felt that Rob was not willing to or not be in the ECW for long years. So that was kind of bugging Paul Heyman. That was the reason actually that Paul didn't include Rob Van Dam, but he was eventually included in the Rob Van Dam because Chris Candido became injured, and for that thing, Rob Van Dam came. That was the opening match, Rob Van Dam versus Lance Storm, and this was a squash match that Rob Van Dam got because they didn't have any plan. That was a point on plan. So they actually gave him the match, but he was not excited, and he actually cut the promo just as he was feeling. And this was a scripted promo, obviously. And Paul Heyman actually said that they were kind of skeptical when they were said that they to Rom Van Dam that you cut this promo, but he actually said the real when real things, real promos are cut, they are so natural and they are so good to listen because that's the moment and that's the thing that you're going on with. You know that, and you know that, and you can feel that promo, and that was a shoot promo that he had cut. One of the sweet moments that some one of the great moments, sweet moment of RVD's career. And then we got to know that WWE was kind of interested in bringing up some ECW talents to them because that was a time when WCW were whooping the ass of WWF. So Vince McMahon actually agreed upon that he would bring ECW guys to have some exchange of talents, and Paul Heyman actually agreed upon that. And we have seen that they had a feud as well. They actually bring upon Rob Van Dam as one who is not interested or who is not liking ECW, and they actually cut a shoot promo as well on ECW because they actually planned a shoot promo on ECW and on WWE actually, and the fans were kind of skeptical because he was not in the contract of WWE and WWF on those days. He was on the contract of ECW as well, and they were the fans were actually confused about uh, whether he signed with WWF or whether he was signed with ECW, because that was a character that he was kind of putting and kind of getting over with that. And he had some basic matches there, kind of showcasing his talent, and the fans actually started liking him. And the WWE actually was interested to sign Rob, but he was not interested, or he was not ready to leave or be comfortable to leave ECW. And RVD then had we see in a cut promo with Sabu about how the ratings go up when he's on the camera. Just so cringe, man, when he cuts that promo. Like, it's a short thing and you say that, and that's the character that he had. And that was the match which got him the big moment where he won the title, and this was a turning and the pivotal point of his career where he actually began with his reign of terror. He was something 1 year or something, like 1 year 8 months, I think 1 year 8 months champion, and he was one hell of a champion. And he was a very successful champion. He was so over with the fans. And Paul Heyman says that he was actually determined to make this title as a top title than ECW Heavyweight Championship as well. So he actually put the credibility to this championship, as many superstars like Dreamer and Bubba Ray Dudley even said that he actually put that credibility on that championship, and he was very good. And there was sometimes as well, it's so over with fans that there was sometimes when pay-per-views, so 8 out of 7 matches would be bad, but his matches would close out the show, and that's one hell of a match that they close with. And then fans went happy home because that was a kind of environment that he had created. So he was so over at that time in 1980, 98, 98, 99 period. That was time. And then Paul Heyman also says that he would be have been TV champion if ECW would have hold on till this date. And then he had a very bad moment, and a bad thing is in his career where he got actually injured in a ECW house show where he was wrestling with Rhino, and he actually broke his ankle, and he was forced to relinquish his title to he actually lost the title to he actually lost the title to Don Callis, and it was frustrating for him at that moment because he was having his very great run at that time, having won the TV title, but eventually the injury sidelined him. This was the time when ECW was going down as financially, and they were not at that kind of a good picture that they were going, as Paul Heyman saying that they actually were not able to pay some talents as well. So Rob actually agreed to cut a paycheck as well, even though Paul Heyman said that even though Paul Heyman did give him his money as a paycheck, but he didn't cash in that paycheck. So that was a very generous thing that RVD had done, because such was the feelings for the superstars, and such was the feeling for that promotion ECW, because that was a homegrown promotion that all the wrestlers had put upon the sweat and blood that they had. So this was a moment where I got so hooked to the show that I had so feelings in this show, because as just he was telling me, it was so good, because they were like a family or something. And eventually going forward in this documentary, this feeling was kind of hooked in me. And RVD actually stayed with the company until the end, even though offers were coming from several other places, but he didn't go back, because he didn't go to any other place, but because he wanted to be an ECW guy, and he wanted to wrestle in that style as well. RVD says still today as well that ECW was the most fun place he had ever worked in. And then Paul Heyman actually got to the moment where in April 2001, as ECW actually filed for bankruptcy, and that was a moment where WCW was also out of business, and there was only one pioneer at that time, which was WWE, still to this date. And he got to WWE, and he had no clue what he was going to do, but they were bring upon as heels, like they played out invasion angle, ECW, WCW, WWE invasion angle that they had. RVD wasn't happy about it, because he wanted to be bring about like faces, but they were not. They were bring like some type of thugs to take over WWE. And then some superstars, Booker T, Jeff Hardy, said that he had just a great connection with fans, and he had one of the very best matches that he had with Jeff Hardy says. And RVD then had his moment where he won the WWF Hardcore title from Jeff Hardy, and that was a moment of his life for him, and very great match that they had. Put it on. Think about that, man. Even in these days, if you put about Jeff Hardy versus Rob Van Dam, that would be a steal of a show. That would be a sold out show. Yeah. And then we got some moments of him like RVD pinning the Undertaker, which is a great moment for him, and Kurt Angle, and other WWE stars who had the match with. And Paul then says that Rob Rob actually made it when he was told by Steve Austin that he was one of the hottest star in the company, and because Rob was rising as crazy as hell, and he actually faced Angle and Austin for the WWF title. The crowd actually erupted in that match, and the spots that he did in that match. And then we got Brian Gravitz, who was a WWE writer at that time, a former WWE writer. He talks about Dobbs promos and how some thought he had no passion and all, but Rob was wrong. He was very laid back, because there's just guys that like to get high and chill, but he seemed like a regular person that just happened to be a WWE superstar. So he was kind of that person who wanted to be a regular kind of guy, not to be do exciting stuff just for the sake of doing it. And Edge has his opinion as well, where he had the greatest connection with RVD, and the matches he had, and some more highlights we saw at this point of crazy things he had done in that elimination chamber match, where he do that splash spot with Triple H, and RVD then becomes in that match that 5-time IC champion and tag champion with Booker T. Some moments with Rey Mysterio as well, tag team champions. So they were putting on the accolades that he had in the career of WWE. So Rock was actually happy with what he was kind of getting at that point. But he was kind of frustrated because he was not enjoying some moments, and he kind of felt that some angles and directions that he had was not good. But he also said that some superstar just mold out with any shape that they got. But he was not like that. He was from early as well, childhood as well. He wanted to do the things that he like, and he wanted to do his way. So he was that type of guy. He actually also think that he was one of the privileged guy that he had, because he haven't had any major injuries in his career, and he got all that he thought he got over by the fans. And he was kind of thinking, and that actually led him to, because he was into smoking marijuana. And Dreamer actually said that Rob wasn't happy at that time, because he was because that was the time when backstage politics and all kind of began with uh, to hit him actually. And Rob talks about then that, oh, no matter where he was, there would be ECW chant that would break out him, and that spirit had not died till date, as Rob says. This was the point when Rob actually asked Vince why he never did a one-time ECW show. So he was expecting, Rob says that he was expecting Vince to just laying out the reason or something. But Vince told that it was a great idea, and Vince totally thought that like he would make a lot of money, and they actually did it. And Vince calls Rob a smart person in laying out the plans, laying out the creative plans and directions and all. And they had their first ever ECW one night stand that they had. And the fans actually said, some said that there were fans who were standing from 8:30 a.m. To the night of 8:30 p.m. for to get into the arena for that much by the fans and the excitement that was going on. And Baba Ray rarely has all. So some ECW's stars were getting into this time, because they were actually kind of very excited to witness the greatest nights in pro wrestling history, because they were also invited. They had their sign-ins and all that we had seen in that in this segment. It was a wonderful show, but Rob wasn't in that show because he had a damaged knee, but he sure come and cut a promo because and he cut a promo where he actually Rob said that he wasn't saying what like script had said, because he was just cutting the promo that he from his heart. And he actually said about how he's grateful to come back. And he actually also said that infamous line, the whole effing show. So that was his promo, that was straight out of from his heart. And Rima says that that show actually gave him satisfaction for him. And then we got to the moment where after this was WrestleMania 22, where he won the Money in the Bank case. And he was also very over with the fans. That was a moment WWE pulled the trigger, and he actually won the Money in the Bank briefcase for the first time. And he was very credible in that role. This was a time where, and this was after some time actually, WWE actually made a decision to relaunch ECW as a third brand. And again, uh, fans actually the past superstar were excited about ECW coming back. But the way they relaunched the brand, that was kind of another third brand of WWE. They just portrayed the lesser focused storylines and matches that they ran. And we also saw footage of Big Show's match with a guy, I don't know who was that. uh, uh, I don't remember that, but he had a match, and the fans were chanting, get out of here, get out of here." So actually I missed about that. Before relaunching the ECW, they were planning about that. They had that second show of One Night Stand second, which Paul actually had planned that to have a match for Rob Van Dam for the WWE Championship, where John Cena was the WWE Championship that time. And we had a promo where Rob Van Dam says to John Cena that he was gonna cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase at ECW One Night Stand second. And the first Paul Heyman was kind of skeptical, because normally the sequel didn't don't repeat itself. But the second one was also very great, and the crowd rushing was nothing like it. And the crowd and the Chicago hated Cena, because we had seen the Cena actually throw a shirt, and that shirt actually was thrown away into the ring directly by the fans. And they were so pissed with Cena. And there was so many cards that said that if Cena wins, we will riot. And eventually then um, uh, RVD wins with Heyman counting the fall. That moment we had seen many times in every other social media. One of the greatest moments of ECW and for WWE as well, and for RVD itself and John Cena as well. The things were going very good, but after that uh, that the incident occurred where he was being arrested because with Sabu as well for was speeding up the car, and cops actually checked on his car, and he they found out that they had some stuffs they had, and he was being arrested because he had some drugs and all in his car. And Vince actually was very pissed off in this moment because was so getting over, and he was so at the top of the food chain, but he didn't have that he didn't have that he didn't have the understanding or thought about it, because he was so into his own thing that he just wanted to do what he likes. And he actually said in this interview as well, like I previously I said that he was so privileged to be privileged, and he would not be getting in any bad things, or it would not be happening anything to him or whatever. But he actually admitted then that sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes some things don't go into the plan, and this was that time. And Vince was very disappointed after that. He was stripped off with the TV champion, and this was the time he was both the champion as ECW heavyweight champion and WWE champion. And they actually dropped the title to Edge in a triple threat match, the WWE Championship, and ECW title was also being dropped uh, to Big Show. And he was also Big Show, and he was also suspended for 30 days. Um, Heyman says he was in surprise because RVD was into these bad habits and drugs and all those stuffs into very much. So that what led to him into that, because he was not he was very high in this moment, but he didn't care about him. He didn't focus about that. He thought about that he could get over with that, and that actually struck him, and that actually didn't go as planned. And then they show the errors of many errors that WWE were doing. Batista show ECW TV main event, the crowd actually dumps all over, and ECW was dead, and it was WWE was treating him very badly, and it was kind of a third grade show to just put over some superstars that were not getting TV time, and not like all that stuff. And in June 2007, this was the time Rob contract was coming up, and he was actually thinking about what to do. And he actually decided to just put on a time limit, and he just didn't go back. And Booker actually mentions that it's easier to stay, and it takes a lot to long walk away. And so Rob was kind of jobless that time. He was thinking about where the money is going to come from, and he then gone to some international events where he was working with way more payoffs that he had gotten from WWE, because he was an very established superstar, one of the greatest superstars that time. Then we saw some glimpse, some photos of in 2010 where he moved on to TNA, and he was some photos. It's typical WWE. They didn't focus on any TNA or any other wrestling stuffs, because this was being produced by WWE, and they just did that. They straightforward gone to his return, where he was returned in the 2013 Money in the Bank against Randy Orton. His match we had seen, he was hitting Randy Orton in the WWE Money in the Bank pay-per-view. And it was he said it was a fun. He came back a year later. After that, he was kind of a part-time wrestler at that time. Then he actually sporadically made his return here and there. But in 2016, because he was having some trouble, he was having some problems with his marriage and all, because his family and all, because he was getting divorced at that time. And he was very lonely at that time. And he actually also said that he had just had a dog in his house, and he also thought about that if the dog actually passed away, he would have no other no other uh, no other uh, no the person to look out for him. So he drank a lot at that moment. He got into depression at that time. He felt like his life was ending, and Dreamer says that Rob went to a very very dark place, but he got back up and started fighting. And Rob realized he didn't become uh, full into that dark place, because he got back up and he fighted that. And that's a great thing when you fight, when you have the darkest moments that you are getting across, and then you turn around that with your own will and determination. That's the greatest thing that we can do to ourselves. And he did that. He turned it around and he was back together. And he, this was a time when he met Katie Forbes, and they were this was his fiancée, and they get along with each other, and they haven't married each other, just as they say in this documentary. They are just fiancé, but they are living with each other. And he said some good things. He said good things about her, and his moments with her and all, and some basic stuff, how the motivation and all got him. And he also got into some acting and all, some stand-up comedy career, where he was seen cutting some stand-up comedy stuff and all. We saw some footage of that, and he was saying in that thing that my dad said, aim high, now I do everything high. This is not the style which I am saying. You should listen to him, in what style he was saying. So that was there. And then we got to the current type of moment, where uh, in the Raw show, RVD was announced as a Hall of Fame, and RVD gets a Hall of Fame, and they were just preparing him for the Hall of Fame, some basic stuff. And Vince had Rob had some great relationship, and then we had some Triple H moments as well, some photo picture taking moments as well. And this was getting closed, and this was a time when it was getting close. And Triple H actually said that at the backstage, that he changed the style of the business for the better. And I say, Rob Van Dam, I says, for the better or bad. No, you changed the business, he says. Yeah, Vince McMahon also said, some many young guys actually looked upon you and emulated what he has done. And then comes Edge. So it also says that there will be no one like Rob Van Dam and Booker T. Some servicing Rupert Booker T as well says that RVD always delivered. RVD versus Lesnar in the King of the Ring. Heyman mentions Rob Man, he has his own trail, he has his own career that he has forged upon, and the entire mindset is being is a one of a kind. And Rob says he's only been true to himself in the last moment, and the more he accomplishes, the more he's proud of that. And that closes the Rob Van Dam show. So. As expected, this was a very very great show. I like this. I haven't seen that much documentary, or I haven't read about Rob Van Dam, his early and all, his latest and all. I haven't read that much, because he's not at the top echelon. Even though he's in the top echelon, I would say he's one of the game changer in the wrestling business that we had, that we have, that is living and that we have. And this was a great show. I would say a typical WWE show, but because they didn't focus about of other careers that he had, other appearances, because it was WWE. So they only focused upon that. This is a 1 hour 20 minutes, so but it didn't felt like that, like other shows and all. It was very very great to watch, and this was a very put together show. And I strongly recommend you guys to watch this show. And it was very good if you love, and if you want to see RVD's career. So this was what all happened in the RVD show. So I hope you enjoyed it. I would be making this forward as well, as and when WWE Icons new documentary comes. Not only WWE Icons, I do also make any biography, Dark Side of the Ring. So please do check out, and please like that. Please leave a like, and share and swell to your friends. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel, so that you can get my wrestling content as and when I upload. So this was the show. This was the review that. Of WWE Icons Rob Van Dam career. So I hope you enjoyed. Be safe, stay energetic, and I'll see you guys in the next